The Dunning-Kruger effect is a psychological phenomenon that reveals the shocking truth about how our ignorance can masquerade as confidence. This concept is particularly relevant because it affects us all, influencing everything from our social media interactions to our decision-making in the workplace. As we delve into the intriguing world of the Dunning-Kruger effect, get ready to confront the unsettling possibility that you may be more ignorant than you think. At its core, the Dunning-Kruger effect can be understood through the lens of metacognition, which refers to our ability to reflect on and evaluate our own thought processes. Essentially, people who exhibit the Dunning-Kruger effect suffer from a metacognitive deficit. They are not only lacking in knowledge or skill, but also in the ability to recognize their own incompetence. This concept was first introduced by David Dunning and Justin Kruger in their 1999 paper Unskilled and Unaware of It: How Difficulties in Recognizing One's Own Incompetence Lead to Inflated Self-Assessments. Their research showed that individuals who performed poorly on tests of humor, grammar, and logic tended to overestimate their own performance and ability relative to others. This effect is not limited to these domains. It has been observed in various areas, including financial decision-making, health behaviors, and even political judgment. One of the major psychological theories that helps explain the Dunning-Kruger effect is the idea of illusory superiority, which suggests that people tend to overestimate their own abilities relative to others. This bias is often attributed to a combination of cognitive and motivational factors, including the desire for self-enhancement and the tendency to focus on one's strengths while ignoring weaknesses. My colleagues in the field have also pointed out that the Dunning-Kruger effect can be influenced by environmental and social factors. For instance, in environments where criticism is discouraged, or where individuals are constantly praised without constructive feedback, people may develop an inflated sense of their abilities. This highlights the importance of a balanced approach to self-assessment, one that incorporates both positive reinforcement and realistic evaluation. In terms of therapeutic approaches, recognizing and addressing the Dunning-Kruger effect can be challenging but ultimately beneficial for personal growth and development. Techniques such as cognitive behavioral therapy (CBT) can help individuals become more aware of their thought patterns and behaviors, including those related to self-assessment and competence. Moreover, fostering a culture of constructive feedback and open communication can encourage people to seek out and learn from their mistakes rather than denying or ignoring them. Wheeler's plan was based on his misunderstanding of how surveillance technology works and his overconfidence in his own criminal abilities. This case study not only demonstrates the Dunning-Kruger effect, but also underscores the potential consequences of acting on uninformed confidence. Understanding the Dunning-Kruger effect has significant implications for how we approach decision-making, both individually and collectively. By recognizing the signs of this effect in ourselves and others, such as overconfidence, resistance to feedback, and a lack of self-awareness, we can take steps to mitigate its impact. This might involve seeking out diverse perspectives, engaging in continuous learning, and cultivating a culture that values humility and openness to criticism. The evolution of our understanding of the Dunning-Kruger effect also highlights the importance of interdisciplinary research in psychology. Insights from social psychology, cognitive psychology, and neuroscience have all contributed to a more nuanced view of this phenomenon, demonstrating how psychological effects can have complex, multifaceted causes that require comprehensive study. In exploring the controversies surrounding the Dunning-Kruger effect, it's essential to consider the critiques that suggest this effect might be overstated or that its implications are not as clear-cut as initially thought. Some researchers argue that the original studies had methodological limitations and that subsequent research has not always replicated the findings with the same level of consistency. However, these debates do not diminish the core observation that ignorance can sometimes masquerade as confidence. Rather, they encourage a more refined understanding of when and how this effect occurs. One of the most effective methods is cognitive behavioral therapy, which enables people to identify and challenge their distorted thought patterns and behaviors. By becoming more aware of their metacognitive deficits, individuals can develop a more realistic understanding of their abilities and limitations. My experience with clients has shown that a crucial aspect of overcoming the Dunning-Kruger effect is fostering a growth mindset. This involves embracing challenges as opportunities for learning and development, rather than threats to one's ego. By adopting a growth mindset, individuals can cultivate a sense of humility and openness to feedback, which is critical for personal growth and development. Another significant factor in addressing the Dunning-Kruger effect is the role of social and environmental factors. Research has shown that individuals who are surrounded by others who encourage and reinforce their inflated self-assessments are more likely to exhibit the Dunning-Kruger effect. On the other hand, environments that promote constructive feedback, criticism, and self-reflection can help mitigate this effect. For instance, a study on collective intelligence found that groups that encouraged open discussion, critiquing of ideas, and learning from mistakes tended to make better decisions and exhibit less overconfidence. The concept of imposter syndrome is also relevant to the Dunning-Kruger effect. While imposter syndrome refers to the feeling of inadequacy and self-doubt despite evident success, it can sometimes be the opposite side of the same coin as the Dunning-Kruger effect. Individuals who suffer from imposter syndrome may be more aware of their limitations and therefore less likely to exhibit overconfidence. However, both phenomena highlight the importance of developing a realistic and nuanced understanding of one's abilities and accomplishments. In terms of significant research findings, a study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that individuals who were given feedback on their performance, but were also told that they had a high level of ability, were more likely to exhibit the Dunning-Kruger effect. This suggests that praise and positive reinforcement can sometimes have unintended consequences, such as reinforcing inflated self-assessments. Despite warnings from colleagues and mentors, he was convinced that his idea would succeed due to his perceived business acumen. However, the venture ultimately failed, resulting in significant financial losses. This case illustrates how the Dunning-Kruger effect can have serious consequences in professional and personal life. Understanding the Dunning-Kruger effect has important implications for decision-making in various domains, including business, politics, and education. As researchers continue to explore the Dunning-Kruger effect, it is essential to consider the interplay between individual differences, social influences, and environmental factors that contribute to this phenomenon. In exploring the nuances of the Dunning-Kruger effect, it's also important to examine the role of emotions and motivation in shaping our self-assessments. Research has shown that individuals who are motivated by a desire for prestige, power, or financial gain may be more likely to exhibit overconfidence and ignore feedback. On the other hand, those who are driven by a genuine interest in learning and self-improvement may be more open to criticism and more accurate in their self-assessments. In conclusion, our exploration of the Dunning-Kruger effect has revealed a complex phenomenon that affects us all, often in subtle but profound ways. The key takeaways are clear: recognizing the Dunning-Kruger effect in ourselves and others, fostering a growth mindset, and embracing constructive feedback are essential for personal growth, informed decision-making, and effective collaboration. As we navigate the complexities of modern life, the Dunning-Kruger effect is more relevant than ever, influencing everything from social media interactions to high-stakes business decisions. By acknowledging the dangers of overconfidence and cultivating a nuanced understanding of our strengths and weaknesses, we can mitigate the effects of this bias and develop a more realistic, humble approach to learning and self-improvement. As you reflect on your own relationship with confidence and self-doubt, consider this thought-provoking question: what would happen if we, as individuals and as a society, could find a balance between the pleasure of self-confidence and the reality of our limitations? Might we become more compassionate, more open to learning, and more effective in our pursuits? That's all for today's Psych with Sigmund. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, may your ego find balance between pleasure and reality.